Did you sleep okay? His deep voice cut through the quiet, immediately clearing the morning fog from my brain. I sat up, stretching my stiff limbs. Yeah, I slept great. What about you? Not bad. Once those two lines were traded, the car fell into absolute silence. The atmosphere instantly turned incredibly awkward. The rain stopped, so I should probably head out. You should go upstairs too, I said, breaking the heavy quiet. Headquarters isn't close from this district. Let me grab my other car from the garage and drive you, he countered. There was no logical reason to refuse a free ride, so I agreed. Christian drove us into the underground resident deck and parked. Come upstairs first. You need to change into clean clothes. I stared at him in absolute shock as he stepped out of the car and headed toward the elevator lobby. Wait a minute, where on earth did he think I was going to find clothes that fit me at his place? The moment he unlocked his front door, the rich aroma of fresh food hit my nose. An older woman was currently setting a bowl of steaming porridge onto a modern dining table. Christian, you're back, she greeted warmly the second she saw us walk through the door. Mrs. Miller, Christian nodded respectfully. Now that you're back, I'll take my leave. Breakfast is on the table, eat it while it's hot, Mrs. Miller said with an energetic smile. The clothes you asked me to buy are resting on the living room sofa. I hope they fit the young lady. Maybe I was imagining things, but the look Mrs. Miller gave me felt entirely too warm and maternal. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Have a safe trip home, I said, waving to her as she opened the front door, wearing a brilliant, knowing smile. Once the door clicked shut, Christian picked up a designer shopping bag from the sofa and held it out to me. I'm not sure if it's your exact style, but it should do for today. The second door down the hall is the guest suite. No one has ever used it, you can change in there. I took the bag and walked down the hallway, getting a clear picture of his apartment's layout. It was a minimal, sharp two-bedroom space with clean, modern finishes, completely unpretentious and functional, not at all what you'd expect for a high-powered corporate president. Once I changed into the fresh outfit and packed my rumpled gala clothes into a tote bag, I walked out to find Christian already seated at the dining table. I set my bag by the door and took a seat opposite him. Let's eat. Since the host had given the green light, I didn't hold back. Mrs. Miller had prepared an incredible spread, perfectly seasoned and beautifully presented. My appetite spiked instantly, and I knocked out a full bowl of rice porridge before finally setting my spoon down. I wiped my mouth, feeling completely satisfied as I thanked him. Thanks for breakfast. Christian merely tilted his lips into a small smile, keeping his thoughts to himself. After breakfast, Christian brought around a luxury sedan from his collection and drove me straight to my office tower. The moment I parted ways with him and settled into my desk chair, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from my father. Dad, I just saw the Albright kid drop you off at the main entrance. Attached was a horribly smug, teasing emoji. I let out a helpless laugh, typing back rapidly. Please stop overanalyzing everything, Dad. Dad, sweetheart, you aren't getting any younger. It's time to start looking for a husband. The lecture was so entirely predictable I could have recited it from memory. I promptly flipped my phone face down onto the desk and ignored him. Chapter 26. When you're buried under a mountain of corporate deliverables, time flies at a terrifying speed. Sophia's birthday arrived in a flash. She spent the afternoon having a standard family lunch with her parents, and locked me in for a private celebration dinner that evening. Before my seat could even get warm at the lounge, Sophia let out a sudden, panicked shriek. Oh my God, no. I left in such a massive rush I completely forgot my phone at my parents' place. It's totally fine, I reassured her. It's still early. We can just take a quick drive back and grab it. Sophia looked at me with an expression of pure, agonizing guilt. I quickly waved it off. Seriously, it's no big deal. It's been ages since I last saw your parents anyway. Let's go give the birthday girl her phone back. Sophia's parents lived in a comfortable, modern apartment complex they had acquired through a municipal property relocation deal. The unit wasn't massive, but the location was prime real estate. Once we retrieved the phone and traded some quick pleasantries with her folks, we headed back out to the corridor. As we shut the door, the apartment directly across the hall opened, and the residents stepped out. Sophia and I were laughing over a joke and didn't pay much attention at first. Sophia? Chloe, a sharp voice, laced with sudden excitement and total disbelief, echoed down the hall. There then? Brian's terrified expression flashed and I spun around to find a middle-aged couple standing at the opposite threshold. The woman had been the one to call out. I stared at them, a heavy sense of familiarity hitting my brain, though I couldn't immediately map their faces to my current memory bank. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Albright, Sophia turned and greeted them warmly, before leaning in to whisper in my ear, these are the parents of that childhood neighbor I told you about. Mr. and Mrs. Albright? The couple standing before me slowly merged with the deep, buried memories of the neighborhood elders from my childhood. The passage of time and a grueling life had clearly left sharp lines on their faces, altering their appearances, but certain core features remained completely unchanged, instantly triggering my recognition. It really is Chloe. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Mrs. Albright was visibly glowing with joy, stepping forward to grab my hand and pulling me toward her open door. You and Sophia must come inside for a drink. Before I could even formulate a response, Mrs. Albright had successfully guided both of us into her living room and settled us onto the sofa. Sophia gave me a subtle, helpless wave, signaling me to just roll with it and catch up with them. Mr. and Mrs. Albright were deeply emotional about the old days, walking down memory lane and talking continuously about the past. Suddenly, the heavy front lock clicked open. All four of us instinctively turned our heads toward the entrance. Chapter 27. The person stepping through the threshold was entirely unexpected, yet completely logical, Christian. Chris, you're back. Mrs. Albright gasped with delight. Didn't you say you had an executive dinner tonight and wouldn't make it back for food? Christian stared at the unexpected guests in his parents' living room. A flash of shock crossed his eyes before his expression instantly flattened into his usual calm composure. The meeting wrapped up early. Well, talk about perfect timing. Look who's here, do you still recognize her? You two used to be completely inseparable when you were little, Mrs. Albright smiled radiantly, pulling my hand to present me to Christian. I recognize her, Christian said, his eyes locking directly onto mine as a genuine smile touched his lips. Without missing a beat, he walked over and slid into the only remaining open spot on the sofa, right next to me. Since you're both here, you absolutely have to stay for family dinner tonight, Mrs. Albright insisted warmly. We'd love to, Mrs. Albright, but I already locked in birthday plans with Sophia tonight. I promise I'll come back for a proper visit next time. Mrs. Albright looked disappointed, but she nodded understandingly. Ah, I see. Then I won't hold you up. You have to come back for a home-cooked meal soon, okay? Absolutely. Sophia and I stood up to say our goodbyes. Christian stood up right along with us. I'll drive you. Before we could even voice a rejection, Mrs. Albright chimed in. Yes, perfect. Let Chris drop you off at the restaurant. The drive over was entirely silent. Once we pulled up to the venue, Christian offered a crisp happy birthday to Sophia, turned the car around, and drove off. Knowing he was heading back to spend quality time with his parents, we didn't try to extend the invitation. The exact second his taillights vanished from the block, Sophia locked her arm around my neck in a swift chokehold, yelling right in my ear. All right, start talking. What is the actual deal between you two? Ahem, I choked out, coughing twice from the sudden physical assault. We just knew each other when we were toddlers, then his family moved away. There is literally nothing going on. Are you blind? Sophia's eyes went wide. The way that man looks at you, there is 99% something there. There is seriously nothing. My defense felt entirely useless. The ultimate result was that she interrogated me across the dining table, forcing me to recount every single detail of our interactions 3 separate times. Do you finally believe me now? I asked, taking a heavy sip of water to soothe my throat. The girl across from me just shook her head like a bobblehead. I rolled my eyes at her. There was zero chance I was explaining it a 4th time. You should seriously consider Christian. I am telling you, the man is completely into you. Sophia's inner gossip demon was fully unlocked. Stop focusing on me. What about your own love life? Any updates? My sole intention was to deflect the spotlight, but the second the words left my mouth, a bizarre, dark crimson flush crept up Sophia's neck, and her hands immediately began twisting together on the tabletop. Wait. I had literally just thrown out a random distraction, and she actually had a secret? Spill it right now. Total honesty, or you're paying for dinner. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut. Fine. It's nothing crazy. Brian and I are officially dating. The second she confessed, she buried her face entirely into her forearms like an ostrich hiding in the sand. The rest of our birthday dinner naturally inverted, shifting from her interrogating me to me completely dismantling her secrets. By the end of the meal, I was practically squealing over the details. I can't believe it. Brian looks like such a stiff, perfectly clinical corporate strategist, but he is low-key incredibly smooth in private. Chapter 28. The next day during lunch break, my phone rang with an unexpected call from Brian. Miss, good afternoon. Brian? Is something wrong with the account? Actually, I need to ask a personal favor of you. His voice sounded noticeably strained and awkward through the line. Sophia and I had a minor argument earlier, and she's currently skipping lunch out of pure spite. I've already prepared a gourmet lunchbox for her. Would it be possible for you to deliver it to her floor? I don't want to escalate things by showing up myself. The whole setup sounded incredibly bizarre. Brian did not strike me as the type of professional who would drag an outside vendor into a relationship squabble. But without overthinking it, I agreed. Sure, I can do that. Perfect. I'll be waiting at the main entrance of your building. Our office towers weren't far apart, a simple 10-minute drive at most. When I pulled up to the curb, I spotted Brian standing by the glass doors, holding a high-end thermal lunch container. I truly appreciate your help with this, he said, handing the container over. Brian escorted me through the security gates and up the elevators, maintaining polite, casual small talk along the way. The exact second the elevator doors slid open on the executive floor, a loud voice cut through the air. Chloe. Right ahead, Sophia was walking down the corridor, trailing right behind Christian. The next sentence out of her mouth caught me entirely off guard. Chloe, did you come all this way just to deliver lunch to Brian? My brain completely short-circuited. What did she mean? I came to deliver lunch to Brian. Before I could open my mouth to correct the narrative, I noticed Sophia blinking her eyes at me at a frantic, unnatural speed, looking like she was about to induce a facial twitch. The puzzle pieces clicked together instantly. I had been completely played. This entire setup was a coordinated trap orchestrated by her and Brian. A sudden flash of genuine anger flared up in my chest, but I kept my face entirely neutral. I forcefully shoved the thermal container directly into Brian's arms, turned on my heel, and marched back toward the elevators. Chloe, Christian's commanding voice echoed behind me. Is there something else, Mr. Albright? I turned around, forcing a stiff, artificial smile. Sophia immediately grabbed Brian's arm and executed a rapid tactical retreat down the hallway, leaving the grand reception lobby completely empty except for Christian and me. Would you like to step into my office for a moment? No thanks. If there are no pressing project deliverables, I'm heading back to my office. About you and Brian asked me to bring lunch over for Sophia. I interrupted him sharply, the lingering anger from the trick making my tone noticeably cold and clipped. Just thinking about getting played by my best friend made my blood boil. In that case, can I pursue you? His voice carried a distinct, fragile trace of nerves. I blinked, wondering if my anger was causing auditory hallucinations. What did you just say? Christian clearly didn't expect my total blank reaction. He let out a helpless, self-deprecating laugh before locking his gaze onto mine and repeating himself clearly, I want to pursue you. Otherwise, I'm terrified someone else is going to step in and take you away first. What kind of absurd plot twist was this? I stood there, completely petrified. The fury of getting tricked by my friends instantly evaporated, leaving my mind a total, blank slate. I let out an awkward, nervous chuckle. What if I say no? Then I'll still pursue you. I went dead silent. If you're going to disregard my answer anyway, why did you bother asking? Christian reached out, gently catching my hand and guiding me over to a nearby leather lounge sofa. He looked directly into my eyes, his expression profoundly earnest. This is my first time trying to pursue someone. I am completely unsuited for it. I was terrified that if I didn't state my intentions directly, you would never notice what I was trying to do. He awkwardly cleared his throat, turning his face slightly to the side, though he couldn't hide the deep crimson color flaring up on his ears. Just like what happened over the last few weeks, he added quietly under his breath. I realized right then that the universe is entirely fair. It had taken all of Christian's emotional intelligence points and stacked them directly onto his IQ. If he honestly thought his previous behavior counted as pursuing, I would have needed to be a literal psychic to decode it. Yeah. I definitely didn't notice. Well, now you know. What's your verdict? My mouth moved faster than my analytical brain. Let's see how you perform during a trial period first. Wait, no. What on earth did I just say? A brilliant, dazzling smile broke across Christian's face. Deal. I chose to shut my mouth permanently. Go use my private lounge to catch up on some sleep for the rest of your lunch break. No, I'm returning to headquarters. I bolted up from the sofa and sprinted toward the elevator bank without waiting for his response, desperate to flee the crime scene. The elevator doors slid open, and Christian stepped inside right ahead of me. Meeting my deeply questioning glare, he offered a slight, almost pouty expression. Didn't you just say I'm on a trial period? I need an actual opportunity to perform if I'm going to pass. Since the words had literally just come out of my own mouth, I couldn't exactly backtrack without looking ridiculous. I sucked it up and endured it. I turned my face toward the polished metal walls of the elevator, staring blankly at my own reflection, completely missing the sudden, fleeting smirk that danced across Christian's lips. You can stop right here, I said, halting at the main exit of his corporate tower. I drove my own car here. I'll drive your car back for you. That way, you can get some sleep in the passenger seat. His tone left zero room for negotiation. Sitting in the passenger seat, I fully intended to stay awake, but corporate habit took over. My eyelids felt like they were weighted down with lead blocks. The gentle, rhythmic swaying of the sedan felt exactly like a childhood cradle. Eventually, my eyes slid shut, and I collapsed into a deep sleep. I was shaken awake by a gentle pressure on my shoulder. When I opened my eyes, my brain was in a total state of groggy confusion. A low, quiet laugh echoed in the small cabin. I snapped my head over to find Christian staring at me, amusement dancing in his eyes. Meeting my profoundly dazed expression, he brought a clenched fist up to his mouth, coughing twice to mask his laughter, though it failed completely. "I'm sorry," he said, pointing a finger at his own head. "But your hair is sticking up aggressively right here." I reached up to smooth down my hair, and sure enough, I felt a massive, stubborn clump standing straight up. He smoothly unlocked his phone, flipped the front-facing camera on, and held it up to my face like a mirror. On the screen, two perfectly symmetrical tufts of hair were standing completely upright on the crown of my head, looking exactly like a pair of cartoon cat ears. It made me look completely ridiculous and dazed. I frantically raked my fingers through the mess, trying desperately to regain a shred of professional dignity. "Go ahead and get inside, you're about to be late for your afternoon shift," Christian urged gently, taking his phone back. I checked the dashboard clock, he was right. I opened my mouth to ask how he was getting back, but Christian cut me off like he was reading my thoughts. "I'll manage my own ride back. Don't worry about me." He dropped the key fob into my palm and stepped out of the car. I scrambled out of the driver's side, offered a quick thank you, and sprinted into the building lobby. Christian didn't leave immediately. Instead, he stood by the curb and unlocked his phone. He opened his gallery. The very first photo was a crystal clear shot of a girl with a groggy face and two perfect hair cat ears. While mentally mocking himself for turning into a literal stalker, his thumbs moved with total honesty, instantly setting the photo as his primary lock screen wallpaper. He stared at the display for a few more seconds before locking the screen and walking toward the main street to hail a cab. Chapter 29. After surviving an absolute roller coaster of a day, I finally collapsed onto my bed at home, pulling out my phone to check my messages. The second I opened WhatsApp, the 99+ unread badge next to Sophia's avatar caught my eye. I tapped into the thread, and the screen was completely filled with wall-to-wall text of her begging for forgiveness. "Sophia, Chloe, I am so incredibly sorry." "Sophia, my brain completely short-circuited. I just wanted to play matchmaker for you and Christian, and I didn't think through the consequences. Please don't hate me, I'm so sorry." My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, typing out a response, before I hit select all and deleted the entire thing. Claiming I wasn't angry would be a total lie, but I also knew she didn't have any actual malicious intent. I tossed and turned in bed, completely unable to sleep. My mind kept violently ricocheting between images of Christian and Sophia. Frustrated, I kicked off the covers, flipped the lights back on, and pulled up a random web novel to kill time. It was a generic, brainless romance novel, full of the standard, cliché tropes where you can accurately predict the ending from the very first chapter. The heroine offers warmth and support to the hero during his lowest point of financial ruin. The hero protects her through thick and thin, eventually builds a massive corporate empire from scratch, and they live happily ever after. Naturally, the story featured a cartoonishly evil villainess. She mocks the hero for being heavy and unattractive during their childhood, humiliates the heroine for being poor when they get older, throws endless schemes after falling obsessively in love with the hero, and ultimately destroys her own life. I skimmed through the final chapters as drowsiness finally hit. Closing my eyes, the plot points of the trashy novel began to blur in my mind. Suddenly, a violent jolt of adrenaline shot through my system, and my brain went completely, terrifyingly lucid. Mocking the hero for being heavy during childhood, becoming college roommates with the heroine and pulling schemes. Christian and Sophia? Chapter 30. I stared blankly at the pitch-black ceiling, the absolute silence of the room amplified by the loud, erratic thumping of my heart. After all these years, reality slapped me in the face once again. I was nothing more than an outsider in this world. But if Sophia was the destined heroine and Christian was the male lead, did my survival mean I had completely broken the novel's core plot? What if the universe decided to violently correct itself later down the line? I stayed awake until dawn, staring into the dark until the phone on my nightstand started vibrating violently, signaling the start of another grueling day. Like a literal zombie, I dragged myself out of bed, changed clothes, brushed my teeth, and walked out the door. My mind was completely blank, yet heavy with a million racing thoughts. "Chloe?" "Ah." I gasped, the sudden voice ripping me out of my internal spiral as the physical world slowly came back into focus. I turned toward the sound. Christian was standing exactly 3 paces away, watching me with deep concern. "What are you thinking about?" "I called your name 3 times. He closed the gap between us in a few swift strides. We had literally just seen each other yesterday, but looking at him right now felt like a century had passed. A strange, cold distance settled between us. A sharp, suffocating ache bloomed in my chest, mixed with an entire storm of complicated emotions. In that exact fraction of a second, the truth finally hit me. I was completely in love with him. When he had confessed his feelings yesterday, beneath my shock and denial, there had been a profound wave of pure joy. I had simply forced that joy down, hiding it at the bottom of my heart out of pure self-preservation. "Are you sick?" Seeing me stare through him with entirely hollow, empty eyes, Christian's handsome brows knit together in panic. He reached out, pressing the back of his hand firmly against my forehead to check my temperature. "I'm fine," I said, the sudden warmth of his skin shocking my system. I took a sharp step back, breaking the contact. "I just didn't sleep at all last night." Faced with my sudden retreat, Christian didn't show a shred of irritation. He just smiled softly. "Let me drive you to work then." I nodded, surrendering to the offer. My head was throbbing in painful waves, and my eyelids were losing the battle against sleep deprivation. If I attempted to operate heavy machinery in this state, I would probably cause a fatal multi-car accident. The car glided into the morning rush hour, navigating smoothly through the traffic. Christian kept both hands locked on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, though his words were entirely directed at me. "There's breakfast packed in the console compartment. If you haven't eaten yet, take it out." I popped the latch. Inside were 2 plush, steaming buns paired with a container of fresh soy milk, still radiating heat. "Did you eat already?" The light turned red, and Christian tapped the brakes smoothly, bringing the sedan to a perfect stop at the end of the line. Taking advantage of the pause, he turned his head, his eyes dripping with pure affection. "I've eaten. Hurry up and eat yours before it gets cold." "Thanks." I pulled out the breakfast, taking a heavy bite of the bun. It was filled with sweet custard, creamy and rich. The sweetness rushed straight to my heart, finally warming up my freezing, sleep-deprived body in the middle of the July heat. By the time I finished breakfast, the car had pulled up to my office building. I offered my thanks, popped the door, and stepped out. Christian shifted the car into park and climbed out right behind me. "Chloe," he called out, his deep, dark eyes locking onto me with absolute focus. "Would I have the honor of taking you out for dinner tonight?" The sheer formality of the word honor cracked through my heavy mood, and I suppressed a smile. Absolutely. What I didn't expect was that today wouldn't just involve dinner with Christian, it would also involve a mandatory lunch with Sophia. Throughout the entire morning shift, I relied on sheer, unadulterated willpower to keep from faceplanting onto my keyboard. The second the clock struck noon, I abandoned any thought of actual food, wanting nothing more than to find an empty conference room and pass out. But the exact second I stepped out of the main office doors, I spotted a figure crouching pathetically next to a massive potted plant by the elevator bank, looking like she was trying to camouflage herself into the foliage. The moment she saw me step through, her eyes flared with sudden light. "Chloe!" Sophia shrieked, launching her body forward to tackle me, only for her legs to completely give out because they had gone numb from crouching too long. Watching her wobble dangerously, I panicked and rushed forward to catch her before she hit the floor. "Chloe!" Sophia gripped my wrists like a lifeline, her voice dropping into a dramatic, sorrowful wail. "I messed up so bad. Please forgive me. I swear on my life I will never pull something like that again. She blinked her massive eyes, looking completely pathetic, her palms slick with anxious sweat. I let out a long, heavy breath, exhausting my anger. Fine. You're forgiven. Seriously? Sophia's face lit up, her grip on my wrists tightening in pure excitement. However, I added firmly, I was genuinely furious yesterday. If you ever pull a stunt like that again, we are completely done as friends. Clear? Crystal clear. Sophia agreed instantly, aggressively shaking my arm like a loyal puppy. Would the young mistress honor me with her presence and let me buy her lunch today? Granted. With sleep officially cancelled, I followed Sophia to a top-rated bistro near the block to grab some food. Since the lunch rush was peaking, the kitchen was backed up, leaving us to chat casually while waiting for our orders. You cleared out of your office so fast today. How do you even have time to hunt me down? Oh, please, she waved her hand dismissively. I took a mandatory personal day for the morning shift. She leaned across the table, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I was literally staking out your building lobby since 8 a.m. to beg for your forgiveness, which means I accidentally witnessed. Ahem. I snapped my head away, clearing my throat aggressively into my fist to mask the sudden, intense flush hitting my cheeks. The food arrived, and the bistro completely lived up to its high reviews. The flavors were incredible. Midway through the meal, I dropped a casual, unprompted question. Linda out Sophia, tonight and send do you ever home. Read those web novels where someone transmigrates as a malicious villain? My mom Sophia was completely buried in her food, her cheeks stuffed to maximum capacity. Hearing my voice, she forced a heavy swallow, washed it down with a drink, and replied, yeah, I've skimmed a few. I forced my tone into total indifference, acting like it was just a random thought passing through my head. In reality, my palms were breaking out in cold sweat, and my heart was hammering violently against my chest. What do you honestly think about the villainesses in those stories? Honestly, I despise standard catfight dramas where women just tear each other down over a guy. Other than that, I think they're fine. She casually grabbed another forkful of noodles, chewing happily. But she ends up taking the male lead, stealing the guy who was fundamentally destined for the original heroine. So what? Sophia shrugged, completely unfazed. The exact second someone transmigrates into the text, that universe turns into a completely brand new story. The original plot is effectively erased, which means there's no such thing as an original hero or heroine anymore. People should just be with whoever they actually love. Later that evening, across a candlelit table at a quiet restaurant, I posed a strikingly similar question to Christian. Christian, if I told you that we were actually characters inside a book, and you were destined to fall in love with a specific heroine later in the plot, would you still choose to love me? Christian set his silverware down, his expression shifting into absolute gravity as he locked his eyes onto mine. Yes. My feelings for you have absolutely nothing to do with a title or a script. He offered a soft laugh. Besides, if you're the anomaly that disrupted the text, then this story was never the original one to begin with, right? Yeah, I smiled, staring at him. Faced with my continuous, bright stare, Christian looked visibly flustered. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, shifting his gaze away to break the tension. Why the sudden philosophical interrogation anyway? No reason. Hurry up and eat, I'm absolutely starving. The massive, suffocating boulder that had been resting on my chest for years completely shattered, dissolving into streaks of light that warmed my entire soul. In this current reality, maybe Sophia was still a heroine, but her story belonged with Brian. Or maybe I was the heroine, and my story belonged with Christian. Or maybe someone else entirely was living out their own plotline, with their own perfect partner waiting at the end. Drink some soup. Christian ladled a fresh bowl of pork rib broth, sliding it over to my side after making sure every single prime piece of rib went into my bowl. Christian, I said, tilting my head to look at him. I really don't like radishes. The powerful executive froze, completely stumped for a second. Then, just dump them into my bowl. My eyes crinkled into bright crescents. Deal. Chapter 31. The drive back to my apartment was brilliant. I spent the entire ride humming a light tune, completely immersed in the pure joy of having successfully flustered Christian during dinner. When the car pulled up to my building's entrance, I unbuckled my belt, preparing to hop out. Click, the central lock engaged sharply. I snapped my head over, looking at Christian with total confusion. Before my brain could process the movement, Christian's long arm reached across the console, pulling my upper body firmly into his chest. He leaned down, catching my lips in a swift, breath-stealing kiss that lasted only a fraction of a second. He pulled back slowly, a dangerous, brilliant smirk flashing in his eyes as he whispered against my ear, "Accepting a marriage proposal right now would be a terrible financial deal for you, girlfriend."